I always enjoy opportunity to hop onto Amsterdam, like your museums. So I think this is more like a support group kind of energy, and I think this is looking from meetups of crypto all around the world. I think we're in the kind of type of stage of kind of re-strengthening the core, and part of what I want to discuss today, because I think there's been like a decade of movement, a lot about like what are we doing, but I don't think like the why we're doing it and why are we here is strong enough. So I want to start with kind of reassessing what is Web 3.0 and what it holds as a potential, and then go into what we're trying to do in order to bring this potential into a reality. So in the most basic sense, Web 3.0 is a way for us to transform humanity from something that is zero-sum, which means that if I win, you lose, and we have this notion where we're all competing and there can be only one winner against the other, to a one-sum game. Since now we're already all interconnected and the world resources are basically finite, we need to basically kind of reach a place where we can restructure our systems in a way that we all win together or lose together, because the reality is right now that we will all win together or lose together. So if we don't have the systems that allow us a one-sum game, we're going to have a very difficult time basically surviving. So when the current web was started, like, I don't know, 30 years ago, there wasn't enough computation power in the hands of everybody. So we chose an architecture called master-slave. Now, since then, it was cynically branded as a server-client, but in effect, the architecture is master-slave. That means that there is a master server, and it tells the slave client everything. So the client has no say in the experience. When you go to whatever site, you have no control over what that site is going to bring you. And so it's really important, kind of, when we discuss today's state, to understand that the server is the master and the client is the slave, and we cannot distinguish between them. So what is our centralized prison? We have central servers that are controlling our information. We have central banks that are controlling our money, and we have central governments controlling us. So everything regarding the architecture, and this architecture that was built into the web basically mimicked the same social architecture that was present in society. It's a master and a slave. There's always somebody in control and a whole lot of others being controlled. We're going to talk about this later, but this control of the few over the many means that the public interest gets lost. It also means that everybody that is being controlled has some kind of comfort in that. There is some kind of comfort, a childish comfort, in being told everything. What to do, what is right and wrong, how much am I worth. So, let's look at them one by one. So central servers controlling our information, right? So when you say, okay, Google, what's going on? Basically, you don't have any other, any other alternative, right? Because it's the only place where you can actually go to search for stuff. It's a centralized place that is controlled by a private company with a private interest in mind, and they've been collecting a lot of information for a long time. And when you go to google.com, you go to a private entity with a narrow interest, and you tell them, okay, so what's reality? What's going on now? All the questions you're asking from someone that inherently is not in your interest. And you don't really know or have any transparency over their interests. For value, so you say, okay, bank, for those that have a bank. Again, so banks are centrally controlled, narrow interest parties that basically dictate our value. You know, how much we're worth, how much do we owe. And the entire banking system, again, is built on the notion that I can basically only owe, because there's one entity that is allowed to print money, and everybody else that's allowed to be kind of enslaved to work back to repay that. Same goes with governments, right? So, you know, there's been a law in the United States that said that it's unconstitutional to bar private corporations from lobbying and for paying. So in a lot of places, what happens is that these governments are basically elected once in a very long time, but in the meanwhile, they're being lobbied by very powerful sources of money. And most places, the law can be bought. And ultimately, that government, which seldom really represents the people in its day-to-day actions, always tells us what should we do and what's right and wrong. So what are the ultimate perils of centralized economies in general or centralized society? They always end up representing a narrow interest group. They always fail to serve the good of the public. Inflationary fiats, you know, have a lifespan of 30 years, and they almost always debase to zero. The reason mostly is because there's some central entity in control of it, printing as much of it as it wants. And then because there's a central entity up at the top, and there's no real connection with the base of public down, usually there's kind of lose of balance. And you can look at all these, you know, not the biggest economies, but you can look at a lot of current economies failing one after the other. In Argentina, they had to bar the people from buying Bitcoin in order to preserve the coin. In Chile, they're not able to withdraw from their ATMs. In Lebanon, they try to tax everything, and when they wanted to tax WhatsApp, then the people had enough. But before the people had enough, there were fires in Lebanon, and there was not enough money to put them out, because the government doesn't represent the people. So whoever had the money there didn't spend it on things that helped the people. So when there were widespread fires, the public just became alone in this. They had to fight for their lives. And then when they taxed WhatsApp, so everybody gone to the streets, like 2 million. You see it in Iran, you see it everywhere. And you see these same things going all over the place, where you're basically selling off the future. I'll put this closer, I hope it doesn't fall. Basically selling off the future of the public for some welfare of a minority that's in charge. So this is something that we usually look to. It's called the Gini index. It measures inequality. So like basically zero is total equality. Everybody earns the same. And the black is total inequality. Like 1 is total inequality, which means one person has all the money in the country and everybody else has 0. Okay, so as you see, most countries are in red. So let's take a look at what it means to be in red, like what it means to be like 0.45 Gini. So this is what it looks like. We have top 1% ingesting 22.8% of the income, top 0.1% controlling as much wealth as the bottom 90%, top 1% account for 58% 58% of real income growth, with 42% going to the bottom 99. Highest child poverty rate in developed world. So where do you think this is? This is one of those red countries that we saw. Yeah, it's the great US of A. And this is straight from Bernie Sanders' site. And the reason he was so popular is that because he understood that there is a giant base of people that are usually underrepresented in the laws, in the corridors of power. They're underrepresented because none of them actually have any access to power. They have the illusion of access to power once every 4 years, if they're lucky. But in the day-to-day, when laws are being bought by lobbyists, when information and value are being manipulated by narrow interest private corporations, this public is getting lost. Their interest is getting lost. So the problem with what we have with current capitalism and democracy, it's very opaque, it's very untransparent, and it totally lacks the ability to represent the public. And without representing the public, there can be no real sustainability long term at all, because if we're not doing what's good to the public is what makes up society ultimately. So it's a tactic game for very few in charge. But as we're seeing, the world isn't so big, resources aren't so much, and if we're not really able to do the transformation and start kind of governing our own selves as a collective for the good of the public, it's not going to be really sustainable. So nobody knows how many dollars were printed today. Nobody actually knows where all the dollars go. There's quite a big notion that says that the only reason we're not seeing hyperinflation, for example, in the United States is because what happens is that most of the money being printed goes to the top 0.01% that holds already all the money. And so they're not releasing it, because if they would release it, there would going to be hyperinflation. But already there's a lot of kind of smart analysis saying that pension funds won't be able to be paid in many places. So this kind of road is basically selling off the future, and this kind of payday is getting closer. So why do we want to decentralize? So first of all, if you look at decentralized networks in nature, they always show higher computational complexity. They always show much greater ability to adapt. You look at bacterial colonies, each one of them is very egoistic, but together they do something called quorum sensing. They can basically come to a quorum, and they do kind of, they have this technology which allows them to form consensus. So each of them is basically aware of the experiences of everybody else. And even though each of them is pretty egoistic, they don't want to kind of, they're not like all, just letting go one for the other, but they are all running the same code. In that sense, they're a sort of blockchain. And they can make communal decisions to the best of everybody, to the best of the community. And because they can do that, they are the most survivable ecosystems known to exist. Because they can adapt to almost anything. Their adaptability is supreme. And you look at this, and every network in nature, and networks surprisingly behave the same. The same across multiple kind of aspects: biology, chemistry, humanity, social, society. They act similar. Also, decentralization means that we're embedding public interest into the base protocols. What it means, because a lot of the decentralization means that there's this notion of consensus baked into the system, which means that if everybody agrees, or we find a way to agree that this is a good thing, then it gets done. And most of the reasons, if you look now at poor decisions basically like kill off our future as a species, they mostly happen because no one really cares about everybody. So basically, this Web 3.0 transition means that we're switching to a master-master architecture. Instead of server-client, server-server. This means that everybody becomes a server. There's also a problem here, because when you become your own master, that means that in many ways you have to grow up. You have to become proactive again. You have to regain authority and responsibility. There's a lot of things, for example, on keeping your own wallet. This is a small example. Like, there's a lot of fuss about it because people don't want that. In general, if you take a bird in a cage and open the door, if it lived in the cage for a long time, it won't leave. If the bird was in the cage for a long time, it has become accustomed. It will not want to leave. I think a lot of what we need to do, especially those that are seeing it in advance, is propagate, educate, or try to give results that basically allow people to regain ownership over information, value, governance, those things that have been enslaved. Web3 is publicly owned. It serves the public, by definition, by design. This is a very interesting one. All the great companies that you see in the current internet, they have what's working for them is called an internet, a network effect of information. Uber is worth so much because it has an information network effect. Facebook worth so much because it has an information network effect. But Facebook is just one entity that makes all the money and serves these 2 billion people, which are basically enslaved behind feeds, gulping, like in information feeding farms, gulping down information, and their attention is being auctioned, just, like stock. So imagine what would happen if instead of one entity that wins and just 2 billion people enslaved, their time lost, we have a new network effect of value, which means instead of having one master and 2 billion slaves, you have 2 billion masters, all wanting to kind of capitalize the same economy, that have the same stake and same interest in mind. So, technically speaking, what we're trying to achieve with blockchain is basically to, what the current web gave us is HTTP, is a protocol to transfer information. Web3 allows us to basically add to this a new shared database that allows humanity to store state and manage state and change state. That means that all of our contractual state, our identities, ownerships, belongings, rights, obligations, rights, all these things, they can now be embedded to the ground layer. So instead of having, like my grandfather had, his family had a lot of real estate in Romania. And, where is real estate? It's written in some book, kept by the government. So when the government, when they were thrown out of Romania, I don't know if the entire book or just their pages, somebody just threw them out. Where's the real estate now? It's gone. Your identity, our identity, so there's one database that the government keeps, another database that Facebook keeps, another database that Google keeps. It's all being managed for us. We were never in charge. And blockchain allows basically to add a database, a shared database for all of humanity to share our state in a way that everybody becomes a master of their state, a master of their identity in full ownership. You look at Bitcoin and Ethereum, they are the two leading, you could say, economies, projects, blockchains. They are the two most decentralized blockchains. And part of what gives them their value is their decentralization. But I want to repeat this because it needs to be really clear. It's actually, I put it twice. It's 2 slides. But it says the same thing. Decentralization is the one and only killer feature of this revolution. There is, you look at EOS, for example. So EOS is like a blockchain, but it has, I think last time I checked, only 2 nodes that run the full chain. And those are out of 21 that got permission to actually manage the state. So it's like a rebranded AWS. Decentralization is the killer thing, is the killer feature that allows all these new phenomena to take place. Okay, decentralized networks in nature, they have new behaviors that spawn up. This cannot happen if it's just a centralized mechanism. So whenever you're also gauging kind of projects in the space, always look whether they define decentralization, whether they measure it, whether they optimize for it. Everything else comes secondary. Without it being decentralized, it's not a real revolution. It's not really this big thing that we all want to achieve. And again, this means, and this is a very big leap because it means it can really be a new network. It can really drastically transform the way humanity manages itself. But this is the most troubling part, okay? Because it is by the people. And this is something we're utterly not used to. We're not used to being proactive. We're not used to taking ownership. We're not used to being grown up in that way. We have been accustomed to other central powers controlling our value, our information, our freedom, our rights, our laws. And we can't even imagine what it's like. Like the baby in the womb doesn't know to imagine what's life outside. When Moses came to the Jews in Egypt, like after 400 years they were enslaved and told them there's freedom, nobody knew what he was talking about. They were like generations in slavery. They didn't even understand what he was saying. They couldn't imagine freedom and what it looks like. We're in much the same way. So some of us think it's cool, some of us got hype, some of us saw that maybe it's quick money. A lot of the transformation is yet to occur, okay? And it's yet to occur because the network effect here is massively different and on a grander scale than ever was. This is why the exponent that it's riding on also is longer. And the problem with exponents is that until they hit the knee, they look like a stagnation. That's a desert. And crossing that desert is very challenging. And this desert is slavery to freedom, but it's also childhood to basically, being grown up, or this mechanism where we really understand that we can take our value, our information, our law, our governance into our own hands. It's a very radical transformation. So radical, it's even hard for most of us to imagine. So, the reason that meetups for blockchain, they go, out and in with people size, is because everybody's interested about the price. But price is very, let's say we were in the 70s and someone just invented digital photography, and then everybody would try to assess the value of digital photography by shares of Kodak. How would that look like? I mean, if you try to measure the value of something by something that measures the value of the very thing that thing comes to disrupt, there's going to be an inherent contradiction there. Okay? 1 Bitcoin is always worth 1 Bitcoin. But $1 is never worth $1 because always it is being debased. Always. And it can be played, of course. So it can be played because there's one, Bitcoin cannot be played. The dollar can be played. It is a complete rig, right? Because it's basically a Ponzi scheme where the higher you up in the pyramid, the more chances you're going to get more of it. This is why we're seeing the inequalities rise, because the people that have the more continue to have more and more. What I'm saying is, we're very focused on the price, and when people see that the money, they come in, but there's still very little understanding regarding the fundamental potential of this revolution. And this, I think, brings us to what TwoKey is doing. So, first of all, I want to really stress, inclusivity breeds sustainability, okay? Because if you include everybody in the financial process, the chances that the financial process, the chances that the governance process, economic process is sustainable is higher, right? Because I'll give you an example from our own country, okay? There's this giant tycoon there. There's a billionaire, and there's a giant drilling company, gas drilling company called Noble Energy, and they somehow rigged it without the public being aware, and we found some gas, natural gas, but there was a decision where to process the gas, whether to do it like 110 kilometers in the ocean, where the well is, or bring it closer to shore, like 7 kilometers from shore, where it's much cheaper. And someone made the decision that is utterly against the benefit of the public to put it right near the shore. So it's much unhealthier for the public. It's much more dangerous. It's like a strategic missile target. It's much worse off for the sea creatures because it's a very low ocean there. But it's just better for those two companies. But because the entire process was lobbied by only these two companies, the public wasn't there. That's what it meant. So when you include people, you bring sustainability. Now, in TwoKey, basically, this is just basically repeating what we said. In general, if we want to be included, that means that we need to be part of the value generated. Okay, so in TwoKey, what we do is we took the model of Facebook. So before I did TwoKey, I was doing target audience discovery. I was building algorithms and machine learning and deep learning over Facebook for the biggest publishers and brands on the planet to optimize what the business model of Facebook, which is one and only. Facebook makes all of its money from target audience discovery. Why? Because any business wants business results, right? Now, whatever your business result that you want, you need to find some humans. You need to find some humans that are willing to read your content, install your product, install your app, buy your service. You need to find humans. So that's all they're doing. They're doing it with robots. So basically, they basically hoarded up everybody behind feeds. They're reading all information. They're using it to feed ourselves back to ourselves via auctions. And they're making all the money from this, from target audience discovery. Nobody is included in this process. So Facebook makes all of its money from being able to find target audiences for businesses. And nobody gets, all they're doing is based on our information. But nobody from the 2 billion people on Facebook is getting anything from it. So what we're trying to do in TwoKey is basically restructure the same business model of target audience discovery, just using people instead of robots. We'll get back later into how we're doing these two things, but the main mission is basically all this value that's generated from the current web is generated through information network effects. Giant companies hoarded a lot of information to themselves as central private entities, and they're now monetizing on it. But the same network effect of information is also present from the humans that generate it. So if you could find some distributed way to allow these human networks that generate this network effect to reap the same benefits and the same tens of billions of dollars, basically that would be much more sustainable. So before, technically, we are embedding smart contracts into HTTP and infusing economic models into links, but before I go into the technicalities of it, I want to first describe what this means. So there was, so you know, like when you optimize the Facebook robots with deep learning and whatever, you know, we were doing this for the New York Times and for many other very big companies. New York Times, for example, is making its money when someone subscribes to the New York Times. But no one comes to the New York Times anymore because everybody's on Facebook. So they go to Facebook, and you know, they don't own the audience. Facebook owns the audience, so they can't just post anything on their page. It wouldn't reach anybody. Why not? Because Facebook wants them to pay, and they're like one of their biggest clients. So even though they have 32 million followers on their page, if they just write something and don't pay for it, nobody gets it. So you have to pay for it. And even if you pay for it and you do the best targeting ever possible, you still get a click-through rate of like 8%. That means that if you post something, out of 100 people that see it, only 8 follow through to the content. And that's not even subscribing. The percentages to that are way lower. But if any of you would read some kind of article, and let's say I incentivize you not to spam, and to share it selectively, to find like 5 people that you know that would be interested. And if you don't know, don't share. But if you do know somebody, share it. So if I would incentivize you correctly to spend your time and your mental abilities, your hit rate would be much better than 8%. Much better. Because even though the Facebook robots are great and machine learning is great, there is a thing that the entire like drive of all of this is to find humans. And humans are still better than robots than understanding other humans. And I think it will remain the same for a long time. So the reason you are better than the Facebook robot in your immediate peers is because you have a much more soft model of what it means. Like, you know if someone had a bad day, you know their interests, etc. So our idea is very simple. If whatever target audience you want to achieve, let's say you're a yoga teacher and you want new students, and you only have like 10 students. And this is especially made for small businesses, because small businesses have like what we call a very small sourcing seed. So if you're a yoga teacher or a gardener, you may have just like 5 existing clients. But if you would incentivize them correctly to share it onwards, that means that like basically you're kind of bringing them into a social revenue share model. You're saying, look, help me grow and I will share the value you generate with me. So they may not know in their first degree, but a very, very interesting parameter or characteristic of the human web. We're very, very interconnected. Have you ever heard of the Red Balloon Challenge? Like, I think we consider it like the first TwoKey campaign. So in 2009, the Ministry of Defense in the United States, in one day, they shot up 10 red balloons in random places in the United States. And they gave a few universities like an offer. The first research group that tells us where all these balloons are gets $40,000. It's like $4,000 per balloon. The winning team was from MIT, from the Media Lab, and they basically did what we at TwoKey call social sourcing. They did it more manually. But basically, they just said, look, we will incentivize not only finding it, but also transfer of information towards finding it. So the research group was like 15 people, and they shared to all their networks. So each one had like, I don't know, 100 friends over, I don't know, Facebook, whatever. They shared with them the offer. Look, we're looking for balloons. Have you seen a red balloon? No? Okay, so if you have, great, tell us, you'll get something for it. If not, keep sharing it onwards. Maybe somebody you know saw the balloons, and if they find it, you will also get some of it. And et cetera, et cetera. This mechanism of multi-step referrals, because we're all interconnected, really allows any sourcing seed, even if it's very small, to reach the entire planet. That means that, can you guess, so the MIT team won. Can you guess how much time it took them to win this? It's like 9 hours. 9 hours. How much average referral chain length until each balloon was found? This is mind you, it's a very difficult task because it's not like find me someone who's interested in this content or in this app or in this gardener, and you start with something that's very localized and more biased, right? If you're the gardener, your sourcing seed is like your 5 clients from your neighborhood, right? So they will share, it's more biased, more already the work is done for you. This is completely random, so it's completely random, okay? But still, how long do you think the referral chains were? Well, they were like average 15 that jumped across the planet, but after 15 hops, in average, each of the balloons were found in 9 hours. So the human network is utterly capable of performing target audience discovery. And this is the very same single business model that Facebook makes all of its money from in a completely uninclusive manner. They make all the money, everybody else gets nothing. So in order to do this, we needed to do 2 main things, and that is understand how to embed smart contracts into HTTP, because HTTP is still the only thing that is decentralized in the current web. It's etheric, it can move anywhere. And by that, it allows to also infuse economic models into links. And basically what this allows, it basically allows that this person that wants something achieved can then generate a link, and this link can then become conscious. Unlike today, it can become conscious of its entire referral trajectory. So with TwoKey links, or what we call smart links, the links become aware from who and to whom they pass, and what economic value is ultimately generated from that event. And when economic value is generated, some of that value percolates back to the entire referral chain. Okay? And that's basically a general model that can be used for multiple types of business results. So in our language, there's contractors, which is anyone that wants to achieve any type of business result. It can be lead generation, installs, even votes and petitions, information answering, predictions, etc. They publish it to their, at first their sourcing seeds, their existing fans and clients. That's basically the only limitation that our links have. If you want to achieve something, you need to have at least a very small initial group of fans or supporters. But that's all, because with Multistep, even those small, even if it's just like 10 people, it can still reach the entire planet. So they refer until they found some people that we call converters, or participants that are able to actually produce the desired result. When they participate, what happens is that basically they usually get some benefit out of it. All the referrers get rewards for this, they compensated for their referrals, and everybody gets reputation. So it's at the basis of it, it's an economy for which the underlying asset is social capital or reputation. So you can do a whole bunch of things with it. We're working through them one by one, but it's basically like the plugs in the end. The main architecture in the middle is the same. Just, I guess, full disclosure about us. So we're around since 2017. We have around 18 people. So it's a really beautiful new world. So like our company is kind of, we have like 3 people from Philippines, 1 from Serbia, 1 from Russia, 3 from Ukraine, 1 from the United States. The rest are from Israel. But that's only first order. We have like communities that are already kind of forming as DAOs and all kinds of other design partners. One of the beautiful things about blockchains is that it's much easier for disparate projects to cooperate, because up till now, every company has its own database. So, and without the database, you can't do anything, because the database is what enables the server to serve its state. But with a blockchain as a shared database, it's much easier for different projects to cooperate because they're working on the same infrastructure in many ways. We've been on testnet, and I'm going to later demo you live from the testnet, but actually production has been launched. We've been in testnet for like 6 months. Production has been launched like a week ago, but we're still like doing regressions on it. And there's quite a few like companies, projects, charities trying to take part in it. We'll be waiting to take part. So just a quick vote, like how many of you are kind of active in Web3 in some way? Like building, developing, you're more, all right, so I want to just take a bit real quickly to, I won't get too technical, but when we started out, what we saw is that, look, we all want to get value into Web3, I guess, otherwise we wouldn't be here. When we started out, what we saw is it was a dichotomy. It was either a lot of speculation, so like exchanges were going great, but all there was going on there is speculation. Nothing was actually happening. Or there was an endless tortoise towers of developers, building developer tools for developers, building developer tools for developers. And they're very excited about everything they're creating, but if your clients are if your customers are developers, value is not going to be streaming in. Value starts streaming in when you have users, just general users getting some value from it. Now, the other problem was that if we just build a product, usually if we saw companies trying to build products, what happened to them? They were just basically hung to dry, waiting for the infrastructure to be ready. And if you just build infrastructure, then, as we said, you don't have the product, you don't have the users, don't have the value. So we had to build both. This is why it took us like two years to iterate and pivot and build, because we had to build both the protocol and the product. I won't go too deep into this, but because decentralization is important, all these games with Plasma and sidechains and other private entities are not real solutions. If you want a really decentralized blockchain, that means that all of the nodes, all of humanity has to agree, right? So it's very secure, it's very socially secure. If you want to transfer $1 billion, you better do it in a very decentralized chain, right? Because there's much less chances of you losing it to somebody. The problem is it will inherently be slow because it is so decentralized. So there is quite a consensus already that for decentralization and scalability, you need layer 2 solutions. And in that layer 2 solutions, it is becoming more and more evident the state channels are better because they are truly decentralized as opposed to plasmas and stuff and other stuff. And the problem with those state channels is that usually they're just one-to-one. They don't allow really smart contracts to be played on them, and they require a lot of setup. So like what that means that like if you don't know anything about blockchain and you have some application that in order to use, like you all know Bitcoin, right? So Bitcoin has a layer 2 called Lightning that allows one-to-one, so it's only one-to-one, so multi-party, and it allows only payments. But it's a one-to-one state channel, it works. But in order to use it, you first need to have Bitcoin on the first chain. You need to have a wallet on the first chain. You need to have in that wallet Bitcoin. You have to then transfer that Bitcoin into the state channel, and then you can play. There's a lot of prerequisite setup. But the whole point is that if no one knows about Bitcoin, you can't just onboard them to the first chain in order to use the good stuff. That's counterproductive. So currently no one, ERC20, is like is a euphemism, I guess, for like Web3 client. Okay, so nobody has Web3 clients today. Everybody has HTTP clients because we've been building this for 30 years. So everybody has browsers. Nobody has these. Well, we want it to be like the new browser, right? Nobody has that. HTTP is still the only decentralized part of Web 2. Usually, no one knows or wants to be in charge of their own funds. For all the crazy people out there, like I don't know, maybe some of us, non-custodianship is exciting. But to the truth of the matter, most people, like we said, bird in the cage. Most people, if you say, hey, look, here's a private key, your funds are yours, congratulations, they will run out. They don't want that. They want somebody else to manage their funds. Of course, what happens is that usually when it gets debased or your pensions can't be paid or the money blocks your accounts, then you understand you're screwed, but then it's too late, right? So then you go to the streets and you fight. But in a regular state, let's say in the Western world, nobody wants that. So when we try to devise our solution, basically we kind of expect that it should be that anyone can create and interact with smart contracts, because these are the things. Smart contracts is what allows like huge networks of people to come together in kind of economic contexts. So, but this has to be embedded into HTTP, otherwise you're again with the chicken and egg problem. And it shouldn't require any pre-setup. And most transactions should not depend on layer 1 because that makes them very slow and very expensive. So the idea was to build something that effectively scales on browsers natively using HTTP. So again, I will try to keep it like not very technical, but the base of what we developed protocol-wise is the ability for web browsers to basically form off-chain decentralized multi-party state networks. A multi-party state network means like, there's a state channel like Lightning where we're off-chain, but we can transfer stuff, and still we can prove later to the main chain, the safe chain, the finality of those interactions. So likewise, a multi-party state network allows many people to come together off-chain in a decentralized manner and play out smart contracts, and they later save that finality states to the layer 1 blockchain. So basically, I'll show it to you later, I guess it'll be easier. So how do TwoKey links look? So I'm not sure if you're aware of how the current web works, but when you press like Amazon.com or Google.com or Facebook.com, you have zero control over what returns. They control everything. But when you're running a blockchain, it's really important for everybody to run the same piece of code. That's what makes it a blockchain. That's what enables people to come to consensus. There's an underlying strong assumption that everybody's running the same piece of code. If you take like the Bitcoin core code and you change like 1 byte, it becomes like another blockchain, right? So the first thing that TwoKey links have is something called a code hash. The code hash tells the browser where from decentralized storage, from IPFS, exactly which hash of information to download into the browser. That code that it downloads basically transforms that browser into the decentralized peer in the multi-party state networks. By the way, and this is more robust than bigger chains like Ethereum or Bitcoin, because when you want to run a Bitcoin node, where do you go? You go to GitHub. But GitHub is a centralized entity. So theoretically, okay, there's like commit hashes, but theoretically, they control what you're getting there. When you're going to IPFS by a hash, if somebody changes even a letter in the code, that won't be that same hash. So this is the ability to allow everybody that gets the same link in a certain smart contract context to know that their browser is running the exact same piece of code, allowing these browsers to form that multi-party state network. You could think about multi-party state networks as a sort of dynamic shard per contract. It's like a sort of off-chain blockchain shard per contract. Now, the second thing that comes in the link is something called the state hash. The state hash, basically, so when you load the code, of course, it has the interface and like the looks. It also has a wallet inside. And it also has the TwoKey protocol, the TypeScript, the cryptography. With that cryptography, the code can validate the state hash. And when you validate the state hash, that means that, okay, so, let's go like a bit backwards. A smart contract always starts with someone creating it, right? Someone creates a smart contract and puts it on the chain. So that's like one transaction, the first transaction, like a Genesis transaction, right? From then on, it goes like, it's like a direct acyclic graph. It's like a graph of states. Because, a smart contract has like, I don't know, let's say 4 functions. So anybody can call that function, it mutates, some of those functions mutate the state, so there's a different state and a different state. You can pre-map all these states, okay? But the idea is that whenever you get some state hash and it is validated by the code, the browser knows exactly where you are in the context of the smart contract. In the example of the social sourcing, that would mean that it knows exactly where you are in which of the many referral chains that initiated from the contractor. And then when you want to do something in the contract, that same code knows how to mutate the state without touching the layer 1 blockchain and give you a new state hash which you can share with your friends. So what it allows that just using browsers and link sharing, the state machine of the contract evolves. I won't go too much into the cryptography. I want to leave some time for the demo, and I think we're a bit out of time. I want to leave some time for the demo. I will say there is something these slides we also covered in Ethereal Tel Aviv, and our chief scientist was there also. And he gave a great talk there about them, so it's on our YouTube. You can check later for the full scope. But just like in a general, to kind of explain to you, so in what you currently know, right, from like a lot of blockchains, they use these like private information, like private keys, and public information, right? That you use your private information to sign all kinds of transactions, and then provide kind of public proofs that these transactions happened and you were the one that originated them. Okay, so this you never share with anybody. This everybody can know, right? So what we did, we added a middle layer, which is sort of a shared secret. So this is like a private key. Nobody knows it but you. In TwoKey links, you always get this, what we showed, the state hash, is a shared secret. The only ones that have it are who generated it, and only the direct linked people that got that link. These are the only people who share that secret, but they form kind of a state parity. Okay, so basically what this allows, it allows to basically introduce a very interesting notion of basically forwarding state and allowing kind of disparate browsers to share the same state in a contract that evolves. So this is basically when you think about it like deeper down, what happens, I'll try to kind of give an easy to understand example. When I, as a contractor, generate the contract, I sign it with sort of like an initial secret. I sign it, so there's like a private proof that it started from me. And then I generate a secret. Let's say I'm the gardener. I generate it with my 5 customers. So these 5 customers, they will be able to get that secret. It's a shared secret. So now when I share it with my 5 customers, the only people that know and can prove that they came right after me in the contract are the 5 people I shared it with. They get the secret. The browser automatically generates an address for them, and then when they want to refer it onwards, the browser basically signs with their private custodial secret that the browser generated for them. They sign on the secret they got from this. So, and then they dispose of that secret, generate a new secret, and share it onwards. So the next person that gets it no longer sees the secret that the contractor sent. He only sees the secret that each of them sent. And then so let's say I'm friend 1. So I generated this new secret, X2B. Everybody who comes after me will already be only able to prove that they came after me, that I came after the contractor. Same for the others. This is how the state machine of the graph starts evolving. And this is done in a completely autonomous way by the browser. Okay? Later, For example, for now, whenever there's a monetary conversion, like money is involved, someone pays, then we touch the chain. So let's say like even 5 people did this, and ultimately somebody bought whatever I sold, like a ticket to gardening or whatever. What will happen is that this entire succession, so remember, each time somebody gets a secret, they have their own secret which they don't share, they get a shared secret, they sign themselves onwards, and then they expose a new secret. So the link becomes longer and longer with public proofs, okay, that pertain to the addresses that relay the information. When we ultimately touch the main chain, it's very easy to recursively go backwards, okay, and basically prove that this chain validly originated from the originator of the contract, because his initial secret was signed into a public proof and saved in the contract. So you can always go back to the originator and prove this is a valid chain. And the entire chain happens off-chain. And it happens off-chain entirely without usage of any browsers. So no Ethereum nodes, no Plasma nodes, no nodes. I won't go into all of that. There were some issues that we involved it with aggregated Schnorr signatures, but we're not going to go into this now. With the Schnorr signatures, it becomes even more secure, and it becomes more stateful. You can catch more of this on our YouTube if you want. So before we go to the demo, I want to demo you something real quick, but this is not the end. What I just described for you is like how we maintain a single chain. We have a roadmap on how to generalize this from a multi-party state chain to a multi-party state network. It's a 3-step approach. I won't go through it now, but the first part of it is already working. In the link distribution campaigns, right now we have two things you can do with our product, which I'll show to you soon. One is sell tokens. So the conversion event is somebody buying tokens. It can be for real estate, art, an ICO, or whatever. And the second is for donation. So we have already a lot of charities sign up for that. So in donations, the conversion event is somebody donating for some cause. In those two cases, the conversion event is monetary. Somebody has to put in money. So that action is still happening on the layer 1, touches the layer 1. So until then, it's not. So all these transactions in the middle are completely off the grid, but in a secure manner, decentralized manner, using TwoKey protocol. When it touches, money touches, then you back propagate the proofs. Starting from our third vertical, which is basically distributing links, the conversion event is not monetary. Somebody just clicking to view a content. Same with lead generation, somebody leaving his details. Voting, installs, all these are non-monetary, and the click distribution is the first thing that basically everything happens on the layer 2, except the contract creation and its finality. It's very interesting, but we can discuss it later. So I want to quickly show you basically how it looks, and then you're going to get a live. We're going to do a live. There's a live campaign I want you to try and participate with. So this is basically how the interface looks. Every time everybody has a wallet, so that's not, but it's embedded here. You can use whatever wallet, you can use MetaMask or Ledger, but there's also like an in-browser wallet, because most people, we don't want them to bother with, anything. There's, I'm showing you now from a perspective of, so there's like, a personal perspective, and if you want to basically issue campaigns or contracts, you can they generate pages. So I'm just going to show you this same campaign that I'm later going to ask you to participate in. This is basically a token sale campaign, but you don't have to buy anything. It will give you TwoKeys. This is a campaign, for example, to sell TwoKeys, but this is something called a fiat conversion. So you can say you said, and we automatically agree that you said, and this is how you get it. Now, the interesting thing to see here is that I, as a contractor, I can see the entire chain, right? So let's close it down first. Okay, so it started with me.
Yeah, I was the contractor. Whoop, where did I go? Sorry. Okay, and basically, this was the first kind of group of people that I shared it with. Okay, and that group of people then grew and grew and grew and grew and grew. Now, let's see live how it works. Okay, so basically, now, in this campaign, for example, we offer 20% referral rewards. So that means that every time there's a conversion, somebody participates and get their TwoKey. You don't have to buy it. In this campaign, you said that you gave $6, and we agree that you gave it, and by this, you just get it. In other real campaigns, a fiat conversion means like, I send it to you offline, please approve, and then you can manually approve in this flavor. So I want to show you, but how the decentralized relay chain works. So let's look at this. So so let's look at L5. L5, okay, is a user. When he got, and also basically, in TwoKey campaigns, there are always just two calls to action. There's always forward and earn, like share and earn, or participate now. That's it. What changes between the campaigns is that the participation is different. Sometimes the participation is to vote on something. Sometimes it is leave your details to become a lead. Sometimes it's like to buy something. Sometimes it's to give out information. It can be install an app, it can be many things. And there are many incentive models. In this case, it's a manual incentive model. So in this case, this user, because this user L5, he was directly after the contractor. So he got the full referral reward. This is just one of the incentive models, okay? So he got a 20%. Now, when he shared it onwards, right? So let's look at his referral graph. Next thing to see, by the way, is that every person from game theory reasons only sees the graph from themselves onwards. Okay, so when this guy chose to keep 3.9%, it's rounded up, and forward 16.1%, which means that when the next guy after him in the chain, this L6 guy, okay, when he got it, he only saw 16.2. So it was rounded, it was 6.11. So he sees a different scope because the only person behind him already took some of the reward and left a bit. Now, he generated his own link, like he did like 2.7 and forwarded 13.5. So let's try live. I hope the next browser, I kind of erased it okay. We're putting more and more guards against Sybil attacks and the sort, but I hope this is a fresh enough browser. We've started shortening the link, so the actual link is behind this. And also let's memorize how this referral graph now looks. Okay, I hope it's refreshed. Have internet, yeah. Okay, so there were two visits I mimicked like beforehand. Okay, so now let's try to share it with a new browser. So first of all, look at how the link changed here. This is the more full TwoKey link here. What you see here, so this looks like a regular domain, but behind the scenes, it masks a DNS for IPFS. Since what I said is a bit simplistic, what happens is that each campaign might have its own protocol version. So there's multiple protocol versions, and they have to be loaded depending on various hashes, but anyways, so this is it. This is the actual IPFS link to the public part of the long link that becomes longer with the proofs, and this is the secret, S equals. This is the thing that is not exposed to anybody but whoever gets this from this guy. Now, a few things to note. This is a fresh browser, so I'm not logged in, I'm not anything. The minute I loaded this hash, I already am in the context of this contract. Also, a plasma address was generated for me, a custodian address, already a wallet, a private key, public key was also already generated for me. And this is, of course, we're doing this just via, to syncing, it's just for visibility's sake. Okay, but this is 605, 906, yeah, so this is in UTC, I think, or our time. Okay, but so what you see here live in the L5, and of course, sorry, this is L6 seeing it. And if L5 refreshes his, he should also see it. Okay, and if the contractor refreshes his, should also see it. So what happens is that the browser, the minute it touched the link, it was entrained into the multi-party state network without a single action on behalf of the user. He's already in the context of the smart contract. And he's already in the context of the smart contract using an address that was automatically generated for them. Okay, so we're still not known who he is. Now let's try to just do a referral. Okay, and remember that what we set for ourselves is be able to do state mutating transactions in the smart contract without having anything Web3 related, right? Because that's ultimately what we need for initial adoption. Also for scalability, right? Since if each of these referrals we're doing on-chain, it will be completely uneconomic and extremely slow and won't scale. We have added the sign-in and sign-up for a reason that the blockchains have a, you could call it a fault. I don't know if to call it a fault, but they don't distinguish between man and bot. So we're still doing that for them as a moderator. We're making sure this is a human. Let's see, I hope this is, even sign-up is small, but I'll try to use kind of a user that already has a sign-in and was not a part of the contract. I hope this guy didn't participate. If it's a sign-up, it's not a, it's just like to fill a few more fields, so it's not it's not a big addition, and also sign-up is just a one thing, once in a lifetime thing. So again, by the way, these loading times are, again, this is always, the more decentralized we make it, even from IPFS currently, it's sometimes slower, but it is more robust. So in any case, now I see 13.61, right? Because there's already two people that took some of the reward before me. So now I only have 13.61% to choose from. And I can choose whatever I want, you know, like to give more to myself and less for the person after me or not. And then I can generate my link. Now, this process of generating my link, what's happening now is that, well, the state hash I had was already validated. This is why I was able to kind of jump in the contract in the exact right place. Because the secret I got triangulated me exactly when it was verified by the browser, triangulated me exactly to the specific point in the, oh, had some issues. Maybe he already participated. Okay, but yeah, it's having some issues. Let's see. Okay, we can try this later with another one. But you know what, let's try for all of you to participate. I think that'll be easier to, this can happen if you found out that my browser is already participating in this. It means I probably didn't clean my caches. But let's do like this. Let's have all of you participate. And then try to see it live. So you have QR scanners? If you have, try to scan this. This will supposedly put you up. This would supposedly put you up in the right after the contractor. So because there's already many after them, we'll have a hard time seeing all of you join, but we'll try to see. So tell me when you got it. And we'll switch over to the live view and see if you can join. So by the way, this is a campaign that's live on the TwoKey testnet. So when you participate there, for participating, you will need to open a Web3 wallet because you need somewhere to keep your funds. And right now, we're not doing this as a custodian service. But for referring, you don't have. And although you will be receiving rewards in test TwoKey and earning for your participation test TwoKey, we are migrating these test TwoKeys to the mainnet. So these are going to be real tokens, and they're out, and they will be out and distributed in the very, very near future. They're already live. So now let me try here. Okay, so after a few of you join, I will try to zoom all the way and see if I can see you joining. Okay, so I see some of you already appeared there. Seems to have grown. You can later try to continue participating, and for participating, you will need to for example, this L5, once you participated, then under My Activity, you will see it in your purchases, so you can withdraw it. And any rewards you receive, you can claim them, of course. So your rewards and your referrals are up to here. So you see them here, and you can, from My Activity, claim them. Okay, so for generating the new one, we can do this a bit later. I want to kind of waste the time now erasing this browser, but it was probably because you figured out I was cheating them with a browser that already participated. So I think that is, most of what I wanted to cover. I do urge you to kind of, first of all, these TwoKeys are very soon to be, we've built an internal mechanism that basically, even though we've deployed production for the first few months, in production, TwoKeys will not be able to be withdrawn to personal wallets so that we can build utility-based volume before we send them out to speculation. But the TwoKeys you can participate and receive here are going to be mirrored to the mainnet. So you'll be able to use them. Yeah, so I think that's all for now. Thanks for listening. And I hope that, I know that this has been a rough year for the believers, like in a general note. But if you look at it closely, I think a lot of the fundamentals, if you don't look at the Bitcoin price in dollars, but you look at the amount of patents being issued, amount of companies, banks, governments going in there, you see that all the fundamentals are there, that it's a very huge realm, and everybody's just trying to seize it. So, but I don't think that, that should not despair anybody, because just like in the old internet, when the HTTP was out and about, all the sources of power said, okay, it's a really cool protocol, but we're not going to release information for everybody. That's insane. We're going to lose all our power. So they did intranets, right? But the real network effects of a really decentralized solution, just like the internet, when it actually included everybody, then all those intranets became pretty useless. Okay, so the network effect of a solution that's really decentralized, really, really outweighs and can benefit. And yeah, we're still in the desert phase, so we still haven't seen a real economy rise that is decentralized and utilized, but we're seeing starts of it. So yeah, you're seeing, like, even with our solution. So yeah, we're like the internet was back way in, 1995. So the more people come in and participate, the better it will get. But already, I think in January 15th, you're going to see the first campaigns of TwoKey going live. It's going to be with charities. We've seen very interesting use cases like coding school for girls in Afghanistan, and we've seen also things in Europe and stuff like that. And I think we're just like one company in this revolution, but I think if you look, there are players that are in it for the long run, and it's going to be a long run, okay? It's just we're not used to it, we think, but it is a long run when you're building. When you're building a regular company, it's usually like a 10-year run. We're trying to build a completely new web, so it needs perseverance, and it needs a lot of belief, and needs the will to walk the distance by as many people as possible. So thanks for listening, and let's have a good evening.
Other questions?
Yeah.
Technical questions.
Yeah.
So technically you're embedding smart contracts logic into the browser. So is it happening somehow like behind the scenes with regular browsers? Or the browser which you have used is a special compiled version of the browser?
No, it's a completely regular browser. The reason I was not able to generate a TwoKey link there was because it had probably already saved in it all kinds of informations that said, oh, I already participated with another user. So the thing is, what I said before about blockchain not distinguishing man from bot, now, the reason, for example, Facebook is so valued is because it has a very low rate of fake. It has fake users, but it's hard to fake a user. I mean, it's possible, but it's hard. So we also likewise do a lot of work to try and actually make sure that Sybil attacks are not possible, and so you're not able to use the same browser twice, and preferably even not the same machine. But for now, for example, I wouldn't be able even to demo anything as different users if this I would put the security so high. But that's the aim. In terms of the browsers, there's no special requirement. It's just natively on HTTP. So, browsers differ. There's a lot of edge cases, like Edge and versions, etc. But other than that, no. I mean.
All right. So basically, it works with any browser which supports HTTP.
Yes. There's a small exclusion that there's some very edge cases of browsers that we found that some things are not working, but they're never the actual cryptography. They're like other things, that like this small thing isn't supported in this version of that browser, etc.
All right.
Yeah.
So then the thing is that if browser is able to interact with the smart contract, means it has a private key and it has an address, so it is able to transact in blockchain somehow.
Yes.
So then, obvious question, but where are the private key, like my private key, where is it when I'm doing actions in TwoKey?
So there are currently two types of private keys in use. One private key is basically a private public key that you get the moment you first use the browser. And that's like, we call it your plasma address. That is used for every non-monetary action that you do. That private public key is custodial. That means that an encrypted version of the private key is stored. First of all, it's stored on your browser, but because we don't want you to hassle with the custodialship of it, we also retain it in servers so that you can recover it in a fully custodial manner.
So the private key is in your server?
For the plasma, not for the money. So whenever there's money on the table, you want to make a purchase or you want to withdraw your rewards. You need to open a non-custodial wallet, which is that wallet. Like when you see everyone has a wallet, whether you're in a user mode or a business mode, this is your wallet. This is a non-custodial wallet for which you have the private key and only you have the private key. So we allow you also to encrypt the private key so you can open it with a passphrase, which helps you kind of use it across browsers, but we don't have the passphrase. So, and that can be stored in either in IPFS or on our servers, so you can switch between browsers, but we don't have the passphrase and we don't have the mnemonic. So the wallet where you actually get your earnings is completely non-custodial at the moment. By the way, this is something that also hurdles adoption because, as I said, a lot of people don't want non-custodial wallets yet. But for legal reasons and technical reasons, for now, until we have better multi-party computation options, so for whenever there's money involved, it's your wallet, your private key, and we don't know it. And for all the other transactions for the layer 2, it's in a plasma key, but so your browser stores it. But so because of making a better UX, then also not saving it on the browser when you're not using the app, then it goes back and forward with our servers. Yeah. Of course, we could do it all non-custodial, but as we see right now, this is not what adoption needs. So I think what I currently see as the road to adoption is we see a lot of people wanting a custodial solution. They don't want to manage their own funds. They don't want to keep up with the keys. So we're trying to so now we have the Plasma, which we do only non-monetary transactions, which is most transactions on the network, and your non-custodial for which you can use with the money, when money is on the table. But preferably, we should have like a complete matrix of all 4 options. So you should be able to choose to kind of do everything non-custodial and be in charge of everything yourself. Or you could choose to do everything custodial, right? To start off, which I guess like 95% of people would probably, like the general users would like. And then when you're feeling ready, you could choose when to become non-custodial of which wallet, like the Plasma wallet or the public wallet. But for now, we just have one flavor, which is custodial Plasma for everything non-monetary and non-custodial for the money.
So when I can generate a link and I can choose my reward sharing, I can instantly say I'm a bad person, I share nothing. So I keep all the 20%, for example. And now I have a huge network of email addresses and I'm just a big spammer. Where is the incentive of the people I spam the link to? They have no incentive to share anymore because they can't participate in anything of
Yeah, so
that's on Facebook, and I know how to find the people, I can just use this and find the people and pay 20% for me. And then I just serve it to the people, they see it, but they can't participate in anything after it.
So the interesting thing to note is that there's a lot of humanity checks here. So if you're a bot currently, you cannot participate. Second, if you choose 20% to keep to yourself but then do nothing with it, then you're not going to get anything. It's a dead end. Yeah. So the only way that money flows is that if someone produces the required result. So if you're able to produce the required result, for example, this is a donation campaign for a charity, and you're able to, through your links, bring somebody to donate, only when he donates, rewards stream back. So then there is the question, okay, so how do we regulate this? And this is a very, very interesting question in terms of game theory. So one thing is it's self-regulated. That means that for you to make money from this network, you need people to follow your links and convert. The 2 things, follow and convert. If you start spamming your network, you lose your reputation without even us doing anything technical. People just say, okay, he's a spammer, or I'm not listening to his links. And then you lose your ability to make money. So that's like a self-regulatory part. The second regulatory part is that the entire token economics, the entire model is of an economy with an underlying asset, which is reputation. And that reputation is strictly, like today, reputation on the web, you can buy any reputation. You can buy likes, you can buy followers, you can buy anything. If you go to Kim Kardashian and she says, okay, you want me to post something for you? You know, there's a big field called influencer marketing. You go to Kim Kardashian, she says, I have a flat price, $1 million. And you say, but why 1 million? I mean, I don't know how much you're going to get. She said, okay, look at all my followers. Of course, she bought most of them, right? Because you can buy these things, the people that are working in this. And like even before when I was doing this for Facebook, we had like this project with Adidas, and they were trying to find the best influencer for some campaign. And it turns out it's not that easy because, like Kim Kardashian can be good for one thing and they can be really horrible at another thing. It depends on the product, depends on a million things. So with TwoKey links, you don't care if it's Kim Kardashian or my mother or your neighbor. Everybody gets the same link. You can generate more results. You will get more. Great. You're Kim Kardashian. You can get $1 million worth of results. Great. Get 20% from that. You don't even have to share it with anyone because you're Kim Kardashian. Keep all the 20%, share it on Instagram, and be happy. Great. But the same link can be also shared by everybody. So our idea is to do to affiliation and to influencer marketing what Airbnb did to hotels, to make everybody just being able to participate. And in TwoKey, the reputation, you can earn it, and you can lose it, but you cannot buy it. You cannot buy it. You can only earn it if you actually produce results. And it's per category. So there's also a technical side to it and a self-regulatory side to it.
Can you go back to the slide with the different cases that you were building?
Yeah, sure. Actually, it looks, you know what? Put here, it looks better here. So it's like tokens and donations are the first. Distribute links is the second. It's already actually almost ready in our test environment. It'll take another, I guess, month and a half to finish it, and maybe we'll push it in a month and a half or 2 months. That's like basically any link that you want to distribute online. It can be, we need to press OK on something. It can be online links. It can be even links that we do it on TwoKey.
What does it mean, pay-per-click?
Pay-per-click is, do we need to care about this? Or what?
Where is that? Okay.
Yeah, I wanted to press on it too. I guess.
Is it on the back?
I don't know.
I
Okay. Well, we can stay down here. Okay, so there is a huge model where a lot of like there's a huge market on all of these things where currently robots are like, you know, Taboola and Outbrain. They are giant companies that you know, a lot of web pages where you see like people also were interested in. You see the kind of boxes with content. This is Taboola and Outbrain. Most of the traffic there, clicking, is bots. So the people like the sites that are publishing there or advertising there are paying for bots, and you're also getting like bot-induced content. A model where people are willing to pay per clicks, people to consume content, is a huge market. And in this model, if you have some kind of URL, or even you can even do it in the media funnel of a TwoKey campaign. So if you have like a campaign, you can also you can also like create a separate page and have here like your media here. But it can also be an external link. Any link that you want to distribute, you can use TwoKey to do that. And so that's the we see that as a, you know, as a gateway, because a lot of people might have that use case that you just want to distribute links or follow how links are distributed to any kind of content. Patrons is like, you know, when creators are being paid. It's like donations, like monthly donations. Crowdfund, kind of the same. Leads is basically lead generation. So there's a whole host actually of campaigns we call information contracts. Information contracts are contracts where the conversion event is somebody putting in information. So for example, robots now are very good at answering questions for something that's already happened. If it's already happened, it probably was indexed somewhere. If it's happening now, you know, like with the balloons, or it will happen in the future, sometimes humans are better at it. But also it can be any type of information. For example, like a giant drug company wants to do real, like grand scale clinical trials. Is willing to pay people to kind of put information on side effects. Also, voting and petitions is something I'm very passionate about. We're not starting with it. We actually have it also already working in a POC environment, but there's still no good. We're going to do it later. There's no clear business model there per se. But voting and petition is also something very important. So basically, you could incentivize people to vote by giving them more voting power, the more they bring influence after them, right? So like the current model that we have is more or less the same, but it's very static. So if I'm a politician and I can rally people to kind of vote for me, then I get more political power. But in essence, you could also just have, 56 seconds. I think it's a sign from the universe, that's okay. Yeah, we've already run for a long time. But anyway, so votes and petitions, installs, something that we've also gotten a lot of. HR is something that,
I had a quick question, which is, what happens if I get referred by two people? Or something like that? Two people refer one person, or
yeah, so
refer me, I refer him, and he refers him, so...
Yeah, so our current, okay, let me just wrap up and I'll answer this. So a vertical we've gotten a lot of requests about is Web 2 conversions, which means I have some kind of Web 2 app or site and I want to drive conversions on that Web 2 site. And I don't know anything about blockchain, but I want to use TwoKey. So this is a way to basically enable conversions that are happening in a Web 2 classic site to be reported to the blockchain. This is the next thing we're going to do. And also, there's something not on here, but actually we already have it working on a POC. And that's media campaigns. And media campaigns, I think, is a huge media campaigns. So any media, yeah. Any digital media, like you just created, there's a transition now, I won't go into it, but to a more self-sovereign sphere for authors, for musicians, for creators. So let's say you made some music, you made some video, you wrote a book, okay? You want to distribute it, and you want to sell it. So it's a huge market. We've already gotten requests for from a few directions. And we found a really cool type of encryption that was never in use. It was invented in 2005 by a lead cryptographer, the lead cryptographer in Stanford. It was never used. It's called broadcast encryption. It has another flavor called distributed broadcast encryption. It was never used because all of the broadcast mechanisms we have today are centralized. So they don't care. They just send it to you in a one-to-one encrypted manner. But broadcast encryption allows, in a really cool way, to kind of create your content, your digital file, upload it to some decentralized storage in an encrypted way, and kind of connect it with the smart contract so that only verified purchasers can access it. And when you access it, we're adding there some kind of thing that exposes a financial secret of yours that disincentivizes you to piratize it and kind of share it with others. It's really cool. We're really excited about it. We were so excited, our chief scientist already did a POC with this, which was really nice, and the cryptographer really helped us because, he's been complaining in all his lectures ever since 2005. Nobody's using it. So it's a really cool use case, and HR is nice. Okay, so sorry, your question?
Yeah, my question.
With the two links, yeah. So if two people, so yeah, in our full solution, we right now we support trees, a graph that is tree-like, and that means that you can receive links from multiple people, but you will see them. If you receive links from multiple people and still haven't done anything with those links, you haven't participated or shared, that means you're just a visitor, then you can roam in the state machine between those people, and you can actually, when you will load your campaign page, you will see, I received this from XYZ. But the minute the first one, and then you can choose from which kind of to open it. But then from the first one you actually do an action with, you're binded to that guy. And in the future, of course, we need to implement.
So, like, what would happen if, for example, like somebody refers me and they say you get 15%, and I share it with some people, and then later somebody comes along and says you get 18%.
The minute you shared it, you already bounded yourself to that guy. Yeah, and also it's a game theory aspect because we know who you got it from first. So there's many game theory aspects here. This is why we have also like algo game theorists on our advisory board, etc. It's not clear cut exactly how to handle all the cases, but for sure multiple attributions are very important because let's say I told you about something, right? Like some really cool concert, and you said, okay, maybe I'll go to it, and then another friend told you, and then a third friend told you, and when that third friend told you, say, okay, I have to go. So for sure, the first two friends had something to influence you about this, right? So, yeah, but that's going to come later. We don't have the bandwidth to evolve this complexity.
So it's only one campaign per user right now, is what you're saying, right? Is that what
No,
you're
no.
saying?
No, any user can participate in many campaigns. I'm just saying that there's a thing of, here, let's look at a live example. For example, let's say in this campaign, some
So
internet
you can only participate in one campaign one time.
You can only
No, you can participate in campaign, so it depends what you mean by participate. But for example, if this guy, okay, got an invitation from this guy
Yeah,
and from this guy and did nothing with it,
yeah.
he would show in both these graphs. But the minute you forward or participate,
Yeah.
then you're binded to one of them. It doesn't mean that you can't participate in more, but and in terms of participation, if it's a donation campaign, and the limit is you can donate up to $1,000 and you just donate just 50, you'll still be able to do that conversion until you reach the 1,000 limit. It's just about where the attribution lies in the rewards. In a more full model, if L5 sent L6 like yesterday, and today Andre sent L6, there should also have been a line from Andre to L6, and then when he converts, some kind of mutual attribution between the two chains. We haven't factored that in. It's a bit more complex. We need a bit more resources for that. But there's a current model.
Tremendously complex, actually.
Look, graphs have a way to resolve in the means that, like, yeah, I mean, the complexity rises. That's why we haven't ventured into this. But, I mean, like we have now, it's also kind of an interim model because you can get invites from more than one person. We just decide ultimately based on your actions where to bind you in a single place. We could, as the next step, kind of support like 2 and 3 only, not like explode it. But yeah, it's potentially a pit hole of complexity. So
Now we're ready. Any other questions?
And what about ideas about the business model of the company? How do you look at it?
So there's a lot, there's like tons of papers about the token economics, which you're more than welcome to read from our site. So basically, there's one thing that relates, I think, to all decentralized economies that will rise. There is a basic play of market cap. Because it's a deflationary economy by default, but all the quotes, except the rewards, all the quotes for like the purchases, etc., are in actually inflationary currencies. So all the people that basically participate here have a vested interest in TwoKey. So the first and foremost, you could say, business model is a network effect in value that's generated as more and more people use it. Now, you need to engineer for that. That doesn't really just happen by itself. It's not enough for it to be deflationary. So we've built a lot of mechanisms for that. For example, when you look at the equations for price level for currency-based economies, which are relatively similar, I think, to some degree, there's a notion, there's a few notions that you can see in terms of how to engineer price levels. So for example, in most marketplaces that you'll see, if I buy something from you and you pay me, sorry, I pay you, you give me something, but there's just like a one-to-one transfer of tokens or coins. It doesn't do anything to the economy. But what does do good to the economy is that the more it gets distributed, the stronger it becomes. You can actually see it from the equations. A really interesting parameter of this economy is that in each and every atomic transaction, right? So let's say I donated 1 Ether. There's 0.1 of it as rewards. So that 0.1 Ether will be automatically, so it's automatic demand, automatically used by the smart contract to buy TwoKey. So that's auto demand. Then that TwoKey will be automatically distributed to the balances of the referrers inside the contract. And because there's on average more than one referrer, that means that on the atomic level, the economy becomes more distributed with each and every conversion. So this auto-distribute. And then there is auto-hodl, which also makes the economy stronger because the rewards are parked in the campaign until they proactively choose to withdraw them. Now, the longer they keep it in, they earn more participation reputation that then allows them to kind of earn more from the network level rewards based on reputation. So there are various things, positive things you can do, they earn reputation. So you're also passively induced to hodl and also proactively induced to hodl. Then that 0.1 Ether that was used to purchase TwoKey is automatically hedged to DAI. And the rate of the hedging is on the exact same dollar value that Ether had at the time of conversion. What that allows us is to keep per campaign a hedge rate that allows you, let's say you have now let's say this guy now has, because he referred this guy, so he has some rewards. These rewards are parked in the contract as TwoKey. Now TwoKey is volatile, right? But that campaign has a hedge rate. So he also is incentivized, he's also cooler about it because whenever you want to withdraw your rewards, you can also choose to withdraw them as DAI, as a stable coin, according to the price or the value that TwoKey had at the time of conversion. So that means that the rewards of referrers are basically pretty much safe. That means that you can either, if TwoKey has dropped in the meanwhile, you can withdraw them as DAI. If TwoKey has evolved in the meanwhile, you can, of course, if you withdraw them as TwoKey, there are extra benefits. Basically, that anti-volatility mechanism, again, makes everybody calmer, which also makes the economy stronger. So, and there's more and more such effects. So the idea is, first and foremost, to make TwoKey a stronger token on the atomic level so that with each and every conversion on the network, the economy becomes stronger. That's the first and foremost. And it's a kind of new science. We have a lot of papers on this. We're still working. We've just now, for example, contracted another like mathematician, financial analyst that has, whenever we see someone that has like more experience than we've ever seen before, we kind of hire them and redo everything, rethink everything. So there's a lot about how to engineer the token economics. It's a huge thing. Okay, I won't go deeper into it, but it's a huge thing. But that's the real power play, because the next network effect for the human web is network effects in value. And that means you have 2 billion stakeholders that all want this same thing to rise. This is why I think that when you're going to see, like in 10 years or 15 years, you're going to see the median market cap of tokenized, decentralized economies greatly outweigh the median market cap of equity-based centralized companies. So that's one thing. The second thing is, that's more classic, but also we've baked a network effect into there. The TwoKey network is open to integrators. So integrators are for-profit service providers that earn a fee per conversion. We as a company, we are the base moderator, the base integrator, but and we provide all kinds of services. For example, in some of the campaigns like Token Sell, you have KYC, we have the humanity checks, we have all kinds of things we do there. And we earn a fee per conversion on that. But also other integrators can play. And then they can earn a fee per conversion. For example, for performing KYC, for doing conversion. I'll give you an example. We've been, for example, with talks with several companies. Let's say you're a platform with a lot of, like Iron Source, okay? And you have a lot of, you offer SDKs to app developers, to game developers. So you can become an integrator for TwoKey and offer all these app developers in your SDK kind of to integrate TwoKey. So you as an integrator, because let's say for all of these app developers, what are they going to do? They're going to do install campaigns, right? So the conversion installs. It's not happening on the chain. You as Iron Source can be the conversion validator for this, and you can earn a fee. So, and then each time an integrator on the network earns a fee, some of that fee is taken out of circulation. From that, in that, we basically took a lot of note from Binance, which made it work, right? So Binance does burns of tokens, and this effectively, every time they make all their money, all their fees in Binance tokens, and some of those fees they burn. By burning those fees, they make the token more valuable for everybody else holding it. That's a way to kind of pay back the community. So in kind of the same manner, each time an integrator makes fees on the network, some of those fees are going into deep freeze. It's a deep freeze pool for 10 years. And after 10 years, it's used to replenish another pool, which is called the participation mining pool, which is depleted over 10 years, and that's used for rewarding participants for active participation, because you need to have active participation for the network to be worth anything. So there's a pool that's like rewarding people or paying people for being actively participating. So like each month you get a score. It depends on how much reputation you gain in that month, which basically means how much campaigns you made in this month, how much you participated, how much results you brought in, how much you kept your rewards in the contract, all these things. So then each month, all the users get some kind of network level payment according to that. That pool is depleted over a decade, but over that decade, every time an integrator makes a fee, including us, some of that fee is taken to the deep freeze pool, which is then across 10 years again depleted. So it's like a cycle mechanism. So there's many factors, and so the most basic factor is this fee per conversion, but that's a basis. There's also like an internal exchange. TwoKey, there's a lot of baked in. The beautiful thing about token economics is that, when you're a central bank, when you're a fiat bank, it's really hard to optimize for the economy because it has so many utilities. But when you have a token just for a single utility, you can optimize for that utility. You can optimize for that economy. It's amazing. So the greater play there is about how to optimize TwoKey as a token around the economy. And so we're doing a lot of work on that. Most of the mechanisms already are working inside. For a simple example, a lot of tokens, because of some kind of or ignorance or unreadiness, when a company starts out, you usually, when you're a VC, you don't even look at, if you would be looking at it liquid, like when you inject funds, seed funds into a company, if those funds, if that equity was now liquid, the volatility will kill you. This is put in, they know 10 years they're not going to see it. In crypto, it's not like this, right? So, and then a lot of times speculation, because the market is uneducated in this, a lot of retail investors, you need to, and they're expecting things. This speculation can be hurtful. So we have built a mechanism, which won't be in line for long, I guess, but that we can keep all the circulation of the TwoKeys internal within the contracts. So they flow within the campaign contracts to the exchange contract and all these, but you can only withdraw as DAI. So then there's like TwoKey are flowing, but there's a utility-based flow, not speculative. Then when this rises enough to be a baseline, then we can open it up. So yeah, so there are many angles to this, and we're working constantly to make it more economically viable and Of course, now we're going to start seeing it live. So our entire architecture of the contracts, we worked really hard for it to be fully upgradable, except very few contracts. So yeah, so it's, but I'm a great believer in this, and I think we're going to see, there's a major work that needs to be done there, but for sure that there's a lot of value that can be captured, and that's what we're routing for, the network effect in value. No, that's mine. So this was long, eh?
Are there more questions anymore? Anyone else? Thank you. Let's take a break.
Yeah, thanks. Well, of course, thanks everybody for coming.